It's time for Myth of the Week.
All right, so the myth of the week this week is it in the code that the receptacle is required to be? Now, I got a little crap to sling at David on this one because he said that 406.5G says you can't mount it face up in a bathroom or in a countertop work surface, which that's correct. But I'm really talking about the orientation with ground down, ground up. And so I gave you props, David. You know, you caught me on that one. But we're basically talking about which direction the receptacle is facing. I've always been a ground down guy. I've just always thought it was just the cord sits better. And what we ran into a lot is we'll just get a 90-degree cord. And then if you get the 90-degree cords, it doesn't matter which direction. But it's really hard to like David says, I saw the myth and modified after my input. I modified it for you, brother. But no, it was awesome. I really love intelligent people chiming in, and maybe if I miss something, that's fine. I don't take it personally, and I went and edited it a little bit so that people understood we're just talking about the receptacle orientation. The big argument where this kind of comes up, I don't know if it's still like this or not, but there was certain manufacturers that said top, and the top had, and that's where that green check mark is, with the top with the receptacle upside down. If you go into receptacle catalogs, they show them like that. They show them with ground up. But to me, I've always, the whole thing with this image is actually just a joke. There is no right way. Both of them should have a green check mark. This came from some weird website where they're trying to claim. So this is actually the NECA standard 130, where it basically just says that they need to be installed in a consistent manner. So this is where we always get into the argument where you say ground to the right, ground to the left. A lot of people think that ground to the left is safer because you have the grounded conductor facing up. Well, what you'll find, and this is where my argument kind of comes in, is that if you have those, let's just say you have the neutral, you have the grounded conductor facing up, and you have let's just say an induction heater, or you have some kind of a load plugged into it. If that plate falls off, it's going to make contact with that grounded conductor, and it's going to have a voltage potential to ground on it. So regardless if it's ungrounded or grounded, when it's under load, both sides are going to have that same potential. So it's kind of a red herring when it comes to which way is better on the horizontal. And this illustration right here just says that they just are installed consistently. And so the reason that I kind of come into this, we had a hotel that we did, and the hotel was all ground to the right. Everything was ground to the right. Well, we weren't changing every receptacle in the hotel. We were just changing maybe 5 or 6 every room. So I thought, well, you know what? It'd be smart to just put them all ground to the right. Well, the inspector decided that he thought it would be better if we put the ones that we installed ground to the left and the ones that were existing ground to the right. That way he can distinguish which ones we installed and which ones were already existing. I thought that was a horrible idea. I kind of fought him on it, and I just basically did the way I liked it, and that was all consistent, which I did every room all ground to the right. And so it was a little bit of a battle. There was basically outlets facing receptacle outlets facing every different direction on that hotel project. Because of it, there was some that were upside down, some that were to the right, some that were to the left, and it just turned into a nightmare because nobody could agree. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this myth, because and that is true, David. Like the ground prong orientation is kind of critical, but it's funny because if you go over in Mike Kozlov's hood over there in Chi-Town, they actually have a Chicago code that's in their code book that says it must be installed ground to the right. So that is in the code in there, but it's not in the National Electric Code. So myth is busted. There, everyone that said true was correct. There is nothing in the code that says which direction it must face per the NEC. So pretty awesome to cover this one. We had a comment come in. As a training company, our perspective is always to consider end user. With that in mind, should do the most common way, ground down, remembering there are many exceptions to every rule. So a hospital is the best for ground up. That is the customer standard, most user friendly to them. Yes, I could agree with that, sir. And the other thing that you run into with hospitals is that you have a lot of patient contact with a lot of those areas, and they say there's so many ways to argue that. Like basically, the reason I don't like the ground prong facing up is you'll get a lot of ground prongs broken off because the whole weight of the cord will just hang on that ground prong, and over a little bit of time, it'll just break the ground prong off. Well, then what happens is they don't really still use that same outlet because the ground prong's broken off in there. So they change to a different receptacle with no ground. So it's a non-double insulated cord with no, equipment grounding prong on it anymore. And I have a funny story about that too, James. I'll tell you about. So we were doing a job at like a restaurant, and I see the cook, and he's just terrified to go near the wall. He's sitting there cooking and everything, but you can just tell he's just looking over to his side, and he's freaked out, like he's scared. And so I was like, what's going on? I mean, are you scared of the grill? Are you scared of the fire? Like, what's going on over here? And he pointed over, and there was a fourplex, and it had all four ground prongs broken off in it. So it was a fourplex with all of them upside down and all four ground prongs broken off. And he couldn't plug anything into it. He was freaked out. So I just went over there and I just grabbed my lineman, just pulled all the ground prongs out. And I was like, where's all those cords at? But it was just one of those things that was kind of funny. He thought he'd get some kind of a shock if he tried to touch any of those ground prongs, But it is one of those things that you have to be really careful because especially if you start getting a bunch of equipment that's breaking the ground prongs off, and then you start like we've seen before where a lot of times in the copy shops, they'll get like a bad piece of equipment, ground prong will be broken off. They'll have stuff wrong with it, and they'll just start plugging it into everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have that chance that something might not be wired correctly, and you could possibly energize the frame of something. So it's just important to be careful with that. And like I say, that's the only reason I don't like the ground prong facing up is just a cord weight on it. We had to replace a ton of cords on one of the jobs because it just kept breaking the ground prong off. And then, we'll argue about that later as to whether we could put a cord cap on that and repair it. But it's just really hard when they're saying, no, we have to have a factory cord, break the ground prong off, throw that thing in the trash, grab another one, break the ground prong off again, throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
It's expensive at $20-$30 a pop,
Well, it's interesting. I remember when you called me the other day, told me what the myth was, and like David, I said the same thing. I said, well, the only thing that's in there is if it's face up. There's nothing about any orientation. I remember about, God, I guess it's 20 years ago, I was teaching a class, and somebody had said, well, the ground has to be up, and I told him, I said, I'll tell you what, I said, I'll give you the whole rest of the day. And this was probably about 10:30. And after the first break, I said, if you can find in the code where it says that, I said, I'll give you $20. Guess what? He never found it. And the reason
Yeah.
was because there's nothing in the code that states that. And
Well, and that's where the myths come from. That's kind of why I do the myths, is because I mean, I don't know, you probably didn't have enough time to read through some of the comments, but there was comments of people actually like, oh yeah, it was in the code at one time,
no, it wasn't.
the note, and then they're like, oh no, it's in 517.
No, it didn't.
Nope. So, and just to get back with one, David kind of caught me one off the meme, and it reminds me of a project where I had prefab panels for each unit of a multifamily project. And I have seen that before, David. We had a job where they went and they made all the panels up, and they had all the home runs already. They would shrink wrap them in there with all the links and everything, and you're supposed to just install the panel and string out all the stuff, and it was supposed to be long enough. It didn't work out. I think there was a couple circuits that were too short, but it was all right. I mean, I always say anytime you do prefab, you end up with post fab.
Right.
Another comment coming in. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for stopping in, Don. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you
really
too, Don. Thanks.
And yeah, you can watch these on YouTube anytime you want. And you know, we're just trying to bring good content and stuff that's fun for everyone in the trade.
Yeah,
it's fun for us to do.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That'll always let you know, and you know exactly where to go to get it. So
yeah, anytime James goes and drops his when he is planning to go live, it'll give you like an update. I know it does it on Facebook Live, but I'm not sure on YouTube. But yeah, you subscribe to the channel and hit the like. So everyone hit the like.